It was an incident that stunned a tight-knit community and tore a family apart. The bloodied body of 24-year-old Patrina Eaglesham was found in her mother's car at a Tari shopping complex on March the 12th, 2002. The mother of one, who worked as a part-time model and a bank teller, had been savagely slashed 5 times across the throat. She died from massive blood loss and heart failure. During the trial, a Newcastle court heard that Eaglesham was angry that his wife had left him, and he attempted to make the murder look like a bungled robbery. In handing down his sentence today, Justice Graham Barr described Eaglesham as a liar who had premeditated the murder. He carefully planned and executed the murder and the steps calculated to divert suspicion from himself. Court orders have been made for the custody and welfare of Eaglesham's 2-year-old son. They prevent the offender from ever seeing or speaking to him. He will not see the child grow up and will play no part in teaching and guiding him. I accept that the offender will suffer because of this severance, Justice Barr adding it's an inevitable consequence of his sentence. Eaglesham will be eligible for parole in March 2017. Colleen West, NBN News.
The palms stolen from a lakeside reserve at Swansea are growing happily in the Queensland sunshine. Transplanted in a housing development next to the Toowoomba Police Headquarters just weeks after they were stolen, it seems they're destined to remain there. Police have interviewed a suspect in Nowra, but say there appears to be a lack of evidence to lay charges. The news has further upset those at Swansea who miss the large palms.
That's shocking. It sends a message out that anybody can come into your backyard or your front yard and steal what they like, and then nothing can be done for them.
Norm is drumming up support for a public rally to be held on the Department of Land's site near the Swansea roundabout where the trees were taken. It'll be on Saturday the 4th of September at 12:30.
The councillors, the mayor and the Lands Department representative, so we can get some information of what's going on and when these trees will be coming back, because we want them back. People are pretty angry about what's happened.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
We've got fittings, we've got life jackets, we've got wet weather gear, we've got sails, we've got little dinghies. There's a whole range, and there's a lot more.
After copying a lesson off the Bulldogs on Friday night, some of the Knights passed on tips of their own on the Central Coast today, wanting to put it all behind them. Winger Anthony Quinn knows all about the numbers game. A lack of them up front meant he spent plenty of time in the forwards on Friday night. But the finals equation isn't something he'll be counting in a hurry.
We were told today if we won by 50 and a couple of other teams loses, there is a chance to get in there, but we'll just think about this weekend, think about winning first.
That would mean sending out retiring players like Robbie O'Davis and Matt Parsons on a winning note, while giving Ben Kennedy and Michael Ennis a send-off to remember as well.
Yeah, that's another reason why we can sort of get pumped up this weekend. We've got Matt Parsons, Ben Kennedy, there's Michael Ennis, and of course Robbie O. He's been here for so long, and he's one of the club stalwarts. So we want to certainly leave them players on a winner.
Many will play through injury to ensure that, including Kurt Gidley, who has torn a major ligament in his foot. Painkillers to be in high demand on game day.
My hips, not brilliant at the moment, but it's the last game, and I certainly want to send Robbie off on a winner, so we're doing my best.
And Daniel Abraham's frustrations just continue. He underwent surgery this afternoon after X-rays revealed his ankle hasn't repaired from a break he suffered back in May.
No, Blackbutt Reserve hasn't been taken over by swamp monsters, but in their full-body wetsuits, gloves, booties and hoods, this pair could pass for superheroes. Weedman Greg Tonkin and his trusty volunteer sidekick Peter McDonald are leading the city's latest fight against the monster weed Salvinia, and they're doing so in a stinking cold Blackbutt Pond.
Yeah, it's hard up the back end when you're waist deep in mud, but the mud's real warm, even though it does stink, so...
In April, the fast-spreading ornamental weed took over the duck pond at Richley Reserve. It ended up looking more like a lawn, causing problems for the park's wildlife and visitors.
In our case in particular, it was a danger in regard to the people using the reserve. We were worried about sort of young children or people walking off the edge of the pond, of the grass into the pond, and certainly going under.
Salvinia is prohibited in the United States, making it illegal to sell or possess. Banning its use in garden ponds and fish tanks could also help stop the spread of the noxious weed in Australia.
I'm sure there's lots of other weeds they can use in their fish ponds in the future once they can see the effects that this particular weed is having on our ecosystems and river systems.
Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
Officials were forced to move the action to Malibu, named after the famous Californian break, but left them perched, watching not from a beach, but the edge of a freeway. Aussie Mick Lowe liked it, as the strong 2-metre swell helped produce some high-scoring rides. Mark Ocalupo also won through to the third round, as did Byron Bay's Denny Wills and Gold Coaster Bo Emerton.
Making their first grand final appearance since amalgamation, the Northern Blues came oh so close to pulling off one of Newcastle Rugby League's greatest upsets.
You live and learn. I'd like to think that
Making their first grand final appearance since amalgamation, the Northern Blues came oh so close to pulling off one of Newcastle Rugby League's greatest upsets.
you live and learn. I'd like to think that it's a tough call for the boys to take, to come back and nearly get there, but they had the chance to be on the front foot.
Western Suburbs certainly had no trouble doing that and held on to send captain coach Troy Fletcher, forwards Andrew Weir and Scott Asimus into retirement on a high note.
Their two front rowers have been bashing themselves up for the last 15 years, and to go out winners, I'm very happy to send them out that way.
I'm stoked. It's great. This is my first grand final since under 16s at Barrow. It's excellent. I can't describe how I feel.
There were similar scenes across town at the NBN Soccer League Grand Final, the result sparking one massive party, a celebration that's been a long time coming for Broadmeadow. In Group 21 Rugby League, Scone progresses to next week's grand final at Muswellbrook, while the Wanderers keep their premiership hopes alive in the Newcastle Hunter Rugby Union. Adam McIlwright, NBN News. Top-ranked jockey Denny Beasley was among the NJC's special guests, but it was Alan Robinson who stole the show. The well-known racing icon cum entertainer has taken home yet another Bill Wade medal, backing it up with this year's Jockey Premiership for most wins at Broadmeadow. Paul Perry, Chris Lees and apprentice Mitchell Bell also collected awards, while Fastnet Rock is this season's top 2-year-old, Impaler, best overall. At the MotoGP, it's been a heartbreaking round for the Hunters' Casey Stoner in the 1-2-5s. Forced to withdraw after his bike was nudged by a competitor, Stoner now drops back to 6th on the World Championship ladder. It's the end of the road for the Tigers in Premier League hockey, bowing out of the grand final race, beaten by the entrants 6-5. And on ice, the North Stars have dropped just 2 games this year. Yesterday's grand final loss to West Sydney just happened to be one of those. Trailing by 2, North Stars captain Ray Sheffield posted their only goal, but it was this successful long-range shot which sealed the win for the Ice Dogs and the premiership. Adam McIlwright, NBN News.
The naming of Venables to lead Newcastle no doubt adds weight to our claim for one of the 8 spots in the new competition, with the teams to be announced on the 29th of this month. But if the high-profile coach signs up with United in England, where will that leave us?
I understand he has spoken to Newcastle United in the UK concerning a possible caretaker role, and I wouldn't expect that would have any impact on his role with us here in Australia in 2005.
United CEO Jock Graham is confident that Venables will come to Australia, with the start of play still a year away. But Graham himself won't be with the club then. He's announced his resignation after helping guide United since its inception 4 years ago.
Well, I've made a decision to look for a new challenge professionally after 4 years at Newcastle United, and I've achieved the goals that I set down in 2000, and it's time to look for a new opportunity.
The CEO will spend more time with his family before choosing his next challenge.
The old Patterson Courthouse is saturated in history and tales of a bygone era. It was inside these walls in 1874 that one of the area's most baffling murder trials was held. This is a portion of a rock that was attached to a headless body in Webbs Creek near Tocal, but how it got there and who was responsible remains unsolved. Famous Australian boxer, the late Les Darcy, has also found a home at the courthouse, along with poet Dorothea McKellar. It was a local landscape that inspired her to write what has become a national treasure, the poem My Country. These are among the items the Paterson Historical Society has collected over the past 30 years. And to celebrate that milestone, a new room will be opened at the museum in recognition of a local legend.
James Keppie came out on the first steamship to Australia. It was steamships that really opened up the lower Hunter Valley and took grain and things like that to Sydney.
A book will also be launched on the 15th of September, looking at the history of one of the oldest Presbyterian churches in Australia, St Anne's of Paterson. Colleen West, NBN News.
These are the pint-sized play machines that benefit from daycare across Lake Macquarie. Today they gathered for a picnic at Glendale, helping their parents and carers celebrate 25 years of at-home care. Currently, 115 trained carers look after more than 1,000 littlies across the Lake Macquarie area.
We're talking about family daycare. That's care that's provided in a carer's home. Carer can have up to 5 children and it's funded by the federal government, so it's open to all families in the community.
An extra 60 places have been announced, with extra carers needed in suburbs southeast and southwest of the lake, like Wyee, Bonnells Bay, Morisset, Caves Beach and Swansea.
And they can select the days and hours that they choose to work, so we can cater for out of care, out of regular hours, before and after school care, night care and evening care.
Paul Lobb, NBN News. Matthew Hendicott's HSC woodworking project will definitely stand out when it's marked later this year. His solid cedar coffin has taken 20 weeks to build and is measured up perfectly for his beloved Nan, who, by the way, is still very much alive and well.
But Nan here went to friends' funerals and they had coffins that were basically made out of a cardboard box sort of thing. They weren't very impressive, so I thought, I'd like to see my Nan go away in something that's elegant.
He wanted something unique, and when he suggested a coffin, I was all for it.
Complete with a gloss finish, 6 handles for Nan's 6 grandsons and a padded crushed silk interior, the coffin cost just over $800 to build compared to $8,000 for a similar commercial model.
Very talented with his hands, and as you can see, it's a pride to him.
So I think he's done a wonderful job. Yes, I do.
And are you going to hop in and try it on for size for us?
No way.
Oh, come on, Nan, you'll love it. It's very comfy.
You want me to last for a while longer, don't you? No.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
It's something we've nearly all had a go at, the vast majority of us failing to make it look anything like this. Anne-Marie Putney is the complete 10-pin bowling technician. She's just returned to her Warners Bay bowling base after finishing first in the Amateur South Pacific Classic in Melbourne. The result gives her a chance to improve on her 5 previous performances at the 10-pin World Cup.
Oh, definitely. I'd love to come in the top 3 to beat me 4th position.
Anne-Marie has been an Australian top 3 bowler for 18 years, but with limited prize money on offer, hasn't been able to turn professional and join the world circuit.
To go over there for 3 months, you need probably about 20 grand. So it's very hard to pull that out of your pocket.
One bloke who loves a Putney strike is 2-year-old Carlin. Mum makes the near impossible look easy. In competition, she's bowled 9 perfect games, which takes 12 consecutive strikes.
And it's just pot luck. If they all fall down, that's good on you.
The World Cup is in Singapore in December. Todd Nardi, NBN News.
They represent some of the community's lowest paid workers doing the dirtiest of jobs. Around 100 cleaners from the Hunter boarded buses this morning bound for the state rally in Sydney. They have the support of 6 Hunter Labor MPs who've gone against the grain by agreeing the latest contract offers made by the Department of Commerce are simply unacceptable.
We believe that there needs to be individual guarantees of work and not the total number of hours guaranteed.
They plan to raise the issue with Minister Della Bosca when Parliament resumes next week. Meanwhile, contractor Tempo Services is struggling to keep up with the demand for emergency cleaning at the Hunter's 250-odd public schools. While the vast majority of the company's staff is striking, there is a small group of management doing what it can to keep as many schools as possible from closing. But teachers say that could open a whole other can of worms.
Problem with those people coming into the schools is they have to be identified under the Child Protection Act. Those people are seeking to do it during the school day when the children might well be wanting to use the school toilets.
Dozens of schools were partly closed today. More are expected to follow suit tomorrow. Notes have been sent home to parents regarding arrangements. Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
The big fig leaf out the front is the only reminder of the resort's cheeky past. Inside, Port Stephens Council is revamping the site into a luxury holiday resort. 20 brick units are now in place, with the first of 11 cabins arriving in the bushland setting last week.
We're not treating this as a holiday park as such. This will be a resort. There won't be any caravans involved at all. So we're trying to push this one a little bit up market.
The $10 million resort will eventually house conference rooms and a restaurant, as well as a total of 74 units, and there'll be no mention of the resort's scantily clad heritage.
Definitely not the case anymore. This is totally close on. We're hoping to have a soft opening around about the end of November, early December, with it in full swing by the December school holidays.
Just down the road, the 1 Mile Beach Holiday Park is gearing up for another busy summer on the popular beach strip, catering for more than 100,000 visitors each year.
Well, we don't see Samurai Resort as any competition that's really going to affect what we're doing here. We're aiming at our market and we're very comfortable with where we are at the moment.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
The school holidays almost had a fatality-free start in the Hunter until this. Police say just before 6 last night, a semi-trailer was attempting to cross the Pacific Highway at Sandgate when it was involved in a collision with a Mazda coupe. The force of the crash took the roof off the small car, leaving little hope for the occupants. The 21-year-old woman passenger in the car died at the scene, while the driver, a 24-year-old man also from Curry, remains in the John Hunter Hospital in a serious condition. Both westbound lanes were closed for over 4 hours with traffic diverted. The 25-year-old truck driver from the state's Central West wasn't physically injured, however police say he could face charges. Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
It may have taken 5 months and 3 cancelled fights, but next week Chad Bennett will face one of his greatest fears. He'll defend the World Boxing Federation's welterweight title, which he won in May.
It's one thing to win a world title, but it's another to defend it.
The 30-year-old, who has just received his world title belt, will muscle up against Ruben Diaz from Uruguay in front of a home crowd. Diaz is little more than a name right now, but Bennett is hoping footage of him fighting will arm him with the right moves.
The stakes are a little bit different for this fight. There's a world title on the line, so it is a little bit frustrating, but I'll certainly find out in the first 30 seconds what he's like.
The man they call Hollywood knows a win would open plenty of doors, and he's already attracting interest from fighters in the UK and America. There'll be added incentive to keep his feet firmly fixed next Friday, with a wedding just a week after the bout.
Hopefully disappoint my fiancée in the wedding photos with black eyes and a broken nose or whatever.
Colleen West, NBN News.
It's still hard for Alan Hamilton to visit the causeway that claimed the life of his father Hector in May 2001.
Come down for Christmas, I come down for Dad's birthday in January, I come down the day he got washed in, he's still on my mind.
The grandfather of 12, fondly known as Heck, came to grief while trying to pass through the swollen crossing on the Weir Road during a heavy storm. When police pulled his father's car and body from Cockle Creek days later, Alan vowed to make sure no one met the same fate. He took the matter to the coroner's court, and as a result, Lake Macquarie Council has erected a warning sign and 2 additional depth gauges at the site. But last week's incident proves so much more needs to be done.
The council's responsible for the weir, which was proved in the coroner's court, and all the signs do is virtually give him a bit cheaper insurance.
Alan says building a simple drain structure known as a box culvert would solve the problem for around $80,000.
But while there's nothing there, it's just open slather.
He's now pushing to have the matter picked up by the state coroner. Jessica Phillis, NBN News.
Seven of 54 wagons from a Pacific National train derailed, spilling coal over the nearby passenger line after loading at the Bloomfield Colliery. The passenger line from Newcastle to Maitland is expected to reopen tonight, while the Maitland to Newcastle service won't run until early tomorrow morning. Freight lines will be closed until Wednesday. It's unclear what caused the derailment.
For generations of Novocastrians, a drive up Shortland Esplanade into King Edward Park was a part of everyday life. That was until 2 years ago when this 20-tonne boulder fell on the road, sending Newcastle Council into a spin about what to do. Now they've come up with a plan that will see cars banned forever, $1.5 million spent restoring the crumbling cliff face, and the rock retained for its, well, educational value.
The boulder will be just moved along a bit towards Newcastle Beach. It will be used as an education opportunity and an example of the results of the coastal processes and erosion and weathering of the cliffline.
The idea to ban cars seems less than popular with locals.
Yeah, I just think it's part of Newcastle. I mean, most people that live in Newcastle all their life remember driving up that through Kingwood Park, and it's part of Newcastle. We really need to do it. We can't leave it like that.
I'd like to see it completely removed so that they can enhance the drive up there and make it a bit safer for everyone, and everyone can still use it.
The work should be finished towards the end of next year. That'll be 3 years after the rock fell in the first place. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Reluctantly taking it easy at the Pirates' final shoot-around, it was clear Kavossi Franklin, with his broken finger unstrapped, was itching for some practice time. Coach Adrian Hurley says the import will definitely play tonight, and he's expressed little concern at the cramps some of his other star players were experiencing during Saturday's game against Melbourne.
I think the cramp issue we've had is just been that the players have been playing exceptionally hard and putting a big effort in, and we've done a lot of work with their water intake and their fluid intakes in the last couple of days, so we've taken a lot of steps to address it.
In the Perth camp, seasoned coach Scott Fisher is still unsure whether his import, Roshard Tucker, will overcome a knee strain in time for tip-off.
We also have to take into account the fact that if he plays tonight, will he back up okay for Friday and Saturday? Those are the things we'll be talking with our physio, and we'll see how it goes.
For one Wildcat though, victory tonight would be just a tad sweeter. After just 2 games with Perth, Matt Shanahan has already equalled the number of wins he had with the Pirates last season. He'll be out to prove a point to Newcastle selectors who overlooked him for the 2004 side. Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
We had a mutual love of the sport, and we decided to do things together, and we're going to get very serious now about where we're going. We've got some big fights planned.
In Australia, the average doctor-to-patient ratio is around 1 per 1,900. In Cessnock, it's more like 1 GP for every 2,900 people.
We know that Cessnock has a particular problem, despite the best efforts, and in Cessnock specifically, to get health services. People have come to me personally and said that
In Australia, the average doctor-to-patient ratio is around 1 per 1,900. In Cessnock, it's more like 1 GP for every 2,900 people.
we know that Cessnock has a particular problem, despite the best efforts of the GPs here, I might say. They're all overworked and just can't keep up.
A new university health clinic, soon to be opening in the area, hopes to solve that problem.
I think it's a really good idea. We desperately need it in Cessnock. There just aren't enough facilities for the people around here.
The clinic, a joint collaboration between Hunter Area Health and the University of Newcastle, will see nurses and other health professionals attend to patients under the supervision of GPs, leaving doctors free to attend more serious cases. It's a method of care which has proven highly effective in the United Kingdom, Holland and Canada.
It's a new model of care. It's a first for Cessnock and it's a first for New South Wales.
The new way of practicing has attracted South Australian GP Dr Chris Matthews to the region. He will be leading a team of 4 when the clinic opens on October 25. Daniela Intilli, NBN News.
Full of confidence after a first-round win against New South Wales, the Northern Pride was brought down to earth after just a minute of play this afternoon. The Western Australia Waves clung to that 1-0 lead despite the Pride applying intense pressure for most of the first half. The visitors were reduced to 10 players. A red card dished out after Pride captain Cheryl Salisbury was judged to have been fouled. And Northern New South Wales capitalised on the advantage. One-on-one, Katie Gill was simply too much to handle as she put her side on track. Meantime, in the men's game, the Australian Soccer Association has kept Newcastle United in limbo for yet another week. For the 4th time, the national body has deferred announcing which 8 clubs will make up the new Australian Premier League, due to start next August. Newcastle is still favoured to be included in the competition, with the announcement now set to be made next week. Todd Nardi, NBN News.
There's no doubting Kavossi Franklin was favouring his right hand at training today, but come tomorrow night against the 36ers, painkillers and mind control will see him suit up and play.
I mean, that's what I came here to do, is play basketball. I try not to worry about the negatives. Yeah, I did break my finger, but, that don't stop me.
It didn't against Perth on Wednesday night, where he shot a game-high 25 in a standout performance.
I'd rather have 5 or 15 with the win than have 25 with a loss, so... I came here to collect wins, not collect points.
Scoring, though, was the main problem against Perth, and the coach was leaving no stone unturned in his match review as they try and turn things around against Adelaide.
They will play very much like Perth, so that's going to be very interesting to see how we adjust from what we learned the other night.
The coach happy to have his Chargers away from home for the first time, where they'll do little more than live, eat and sleep the sport.
I was never happy having 3 games at home for the season. I think it's good to get away. You can talk a lot more. You've got the players with you a lot more, and you can really, I think, brings people together a lot more quickly.
Jim Callanan, NBN News. With no support to speak of, the challenger was left to pump himself up. Chad Bennett welcomed like he'd come direct from Hollywood, not the sickbed. There was the usual sorting out period as both fighters measured each other up. It took until the fourth round though before the first clear shots began finding their targets. Diaz too landing some telling shots, catching the champ more than once, with a left that threatened to end it early. It was a fight of contrasting styles, Bennett the boxer and Diaz the slugger, who wanted to end this fight with one big shot. Spurred on by a loud and proud hometown crowd, Bennett fought on knowing his belt was on the line. Hanging on until the 12th and final round, Bennett bombed a right. But he also caught a late flurry as well in a fight that was too close to call. All three judges declaring the bout a draw, leaving Bennett with his belt. After a wedding and some rest, Bennett will challenge for the vacant IBF Pan-Pacific welterweight belt in December. The trip to Adelaide is never an easy one, especially the return leg after a loss. But a disappointed Pirates outfit made it back to Newcastle today, knowing a second season win had slipped through their fingers.
It definitely hurts to lose a close game like that, especially when we thought we were able to pull away with.
Hometown hero Brett Maher celebrated his 400th NBL match and quickly gave his fans even more to cheer about. Aboriginal Franklin showed the right moves too, despite a broken finger. The 36ers, though, on the pace early, Maher just didn't look like missing on his way to 25, while Willie Farley had a night out as well. Again, Brian Weathers proved his worth as the Pirates got few calls, while Russell Hinder was the best of Hunter's big men. He dropped in 17 points for the game. Adelaide skipped away in the final term before Weathers weighed in. nailing 3 from long range. But only Brendan Mann could help him as time ticked away. In fact, a few seconds disappeared altogether in a controversial finish. A timing game had coach Adrian Hurley arguing the toss, but it was the 36ers winning by 2. Now a Tiger, Michael Bevan walked out in enemy territory for the first meeting against his old state. Greg Mail had little time to catch up, returned to sender, care of Dan Marsh. Michael Phelps off the mark in style. Tasmanian fielding sporting a more classic look. Michael DiVenuto, the man with the hands, as Phil Jarks fell. No Tiger could get near Brad Haddon's stand and deliver. But the side screen attendant gave himself every chance. Phelps found the spot too. Blasting 3 successive 4s against Brett Jeeves. Running though, not the Blues' forte. It was one of 3 run-outs for the innings. A fighting 45 from Sean Bradstreet, the Blues' only highlight with the bat. With the ball, it got little better. Michael Dighton launching into the Blues' attack. But while fans couldn't hold him, Matthew Nicholson did. Michael Bevan took strike but found life wasn't easy being green. Stuart McGill turned the game further, stumping Marsh's chance of a big score. On debut, spin twin Jason Krazier chimed in too, taking 3 wickets as Tasmania tailspun. But they held it together long enough to get home with 3 wickets in hand.
After opening in Newcastle almost a decade ago, Tap Dogs has become a worldwide success, playing in 250 cities and raking in millions.
We've got an estimate of 160 million that we think we've grossed, and I don't think there's anything that's sort of come anywhere near that.
Creator Dean Perry started dancing in Newcastle at age 4 and found inspiration for the show in the city's industrial heritage.
The show started off with just pretty much everyone from Newcastle. There was a couple of other guys there, but and it still is today. We've got a lot of guys from Newcastle, and we're always trying to find new guys.
He may have found a new guy in local dancer Tristan Fletcher, who had the chance to work with Perry today. Dean will bring the anniversary show to Newcastle's Civic Theatre next April, while the show continues to play to audiences overseas.
At its biggest, we had 4 companies, 1 Asia, 1 Europe, 2 in the US. At the moment, still today, we've got 1 in the US, 1 in Europe. and we're going to get one up here to do the Australian company.
Tap Dogs was last performed in Newcastle 8 years ago, and Perry says he can't wait for the show to again play at the Civic where it all started. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
If water has become the region's liquid asset, then Hunter Water's CM Weir is currently a veritable mint. A significant amount has been diverted from here into nearby Grahamstown Dam after 250 millimetres of rain fell across the Williams River catchment, lifting total storage from 72 to 87%.
Which will mean that it's very unlikely we'll have restrictions this summer. So we're very fortunate with our storage position.
Our high water stocks, which can be put down to 20 years of user pays water charges, is just one indicator of the corporation's healthy overall position. While the state's Auditor-General has warned public water and electricity suppliers may not be earning enough to replace their assets, Hunter Water says that's not the case here.
The next 4 years we've got $320 million that we're investing for things like upgrade of Grahamstown Dam, the sewage system improvements right across our assets and right across the Hunter.
On the Auditor-General's claim prices could rise to cover asset replacement and service delivery, Hunter Water concedes the Independent Pricing and Regulatory Tribunal will be asked next year to consider a small weekly increase.
Looking forward, price submissions will be judged by about July next year, and that will be set. I expect that prices will go up in real terms by about 30 cents for the typical customer.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
Only a handful of the 12 registered bidders fought it out for this tiny two-bedroom shack which boasts stunning ocean views. Not surprisingly, it was a cashed-up Sydney buyer who came up trumps. The 134-year-old heritage-listed home sold for a whopping $1.275 million, $175,000 above the previous record for the village, which was set by a renovated cottage right next door.
With the buses lined up in their dozens, the groovers came in their thousands. Around 8,000 revellers made their way to the Tyrrell's paddock for a glass of the Hunter's finest and some soulful stuff from a collection of amazing musicians. Jazz legend James Morrison got the crowd up and shaking, or maybe it was the tipple that induced the toe tapping. And while there were some unusual dance moves, No one was cramping anyone else's style.
It's amazing how many people can get drunk in a paddock and walk out normally, walk out sort of normally and behave themselves.
But all the booze and blues was a little too much for some festival goers who, instead of embarrassing themselves on the dance floor, opted for a more civilised way to go out. Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
Frank Frasca's fruit shop at Newcastle West was abuzz after today's fruit market auction of the first box of new season Australian cherries. That makes these little babies from South Australia worth more than $9,000 a kilo, and with the proceeds going to the Hunters Westpac Rescue Helicopter Service, it was smiles all round.
It was an opportunity for me and my family to do something for a worthy cause like the Newcastle helicopter.
No one expected the Newcastle price to get so high.
Not in a million years, no. We topped Sydney and the actual Australian record, so fabulous going.
While Frank spent up big, he says his customers will pay much less for their Christmas cherries.
Well, that particular box of cherries today would have sold normally at around about $40. I was going to say 40,000. No, $40, which would be around about $8 a kilo.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Senior police openly admit from a policing perspective they're not happy about the Mooney Bridge pile-up, especially in light of claims that both police and the Roads and Traffic Authority could have had the truckie that ploughed into the initial accident, killing Ann Parker, off the road in September. Police Commissioner Ken Moroney says his officers are instructed to enforce all laws.
But my instructions and my directions through the region commanders is that I expect all police, whether they're on the highway patrol or uniformed police or detectives or any other specialist group of police, we are police, and I expect them to enforce the law.
And the road transport industry has now been asked by the state's most senior officer to help him make the roads safer for all motorists.
Like the police and the community working together, the police and the trucking industry working together will make sure that some people who obviously are cowboys out there driving trucks are eliminated from the industry.
In the northern region, from the Tweed to the Central Coast, police believe they are making their own road safety improvements on the Pacific and New England highways. Operation Night Safe, which ensures highway patrol officers are on the road between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m, is being credited with reducing the road toll.
Fatalities on the Pacific Highway, including both light traffic and heavy traffic, is somewhere in the vicinity of 14 deaths down on last year. Last year was down on the previous year.
And the campaign is constantly under review to find new methods to tackle problems as they arise. Gary Blair, NBN News.
Turkel College, just out of Maitland, offers courses in a range of farming practices, from dairying to horse management. With some 150 students on campus and 500 studying externally, it's trained thousands of farmers. Recently, the government looked at transferring control of the college from the Primary Industries Department to Education, but after receiving submissions from the farming community, decided against it.
Turkel is about training farmers, and the department which is most appropriate to supervise that activity is the Department of Primary Industries.
As part of the birthday celebrations, a book was launched on traditional Aboriginal land use around the Turkel area.
It's a book that's obviously been well researched. I think it's a wonderful resource material.
Increasingly, agricultural scientists are looking to how Aboriginal people manage the land in an effort to improve Australian farming practices.
For a modern farm, to understand Aboriginal land management, I think it's particularly important, especially when you're managing a lot of native pastures, native bushland,